Hi class. So we're starting our second week, and what we're going to get into this week is technology. Talk about how it's evolved, what its implications are, how does it pertain to business. So why do we develop technology? Because it makes our life easier, it solves problems, it helps us be more productive. And because it's there, that essentially the mysteries of our world and the universe, people need to search. Fundamentally, why we develop technology is to increase what we can do, to be a better us. Now, if you sit down and think about it, how do we interact with the world? It's through our five senses. And what do we have internally? Internally, it's about our intellect, our emotion, and our needs. And so, ultimately, what we want technology to do is we want it to fit us as a person. We want it to be faster, cheaper, and mold around us. However, there's also the external consideration, and that's that, and this is why networks are so important. And networks, instead of faster, cheaper, lighter, fit, we're more interested in wider, deeper. How many different kinds of people can we touch? How do we get to know them better? And we want to do it quickly. If we look at mankind, the progression, for example, let's talk about transportation. What's the first thing man did? Well, he harnessed the animals around him because he found out that animals are a lot stronger and faster than we are. That's one thing I always kind of joke about, like lions. It's like if lions really did have a taste for human meat, they'd be there. So do I want to go after that fat human who can only run 10 miles an hour? Or do I want to chase that gazelle that can go 40? What do you think they're going to choose? To make transportation easier, we built roads. We found that the big obstacles were trees and rough terrain and things like that. And then what we did is we started to harvest the physical nature of the world around us. We took advantage of wind. We took care of the principles of electromagnetism. Subsequently, we turned mechanical energy, such as the steam engine, into movement. And that's given us our world today where we can even reach the stars. Now, let's talk about networks. Well, first it was just, the person closest to you that you talk to. But the thing is, we communicate more through than just language. We also communicate through smells, our eyes, the things that we hear. And so, the first men, what did they do? They all clan together, whoever was nearby or your own family. Then in terms of communication, so there'd be a record or something, we either did drawings or we developed an alphabet. And subsequently, we wanted to get greater distances, so things like smoke signals, drums, again, vision or auditory, more than just speech. And then we decided we wanted to target. Essentially, who do we want to specifically? And so whether it's runners like at Marathon or we target by Pony Express. And now we use technology all over the place. We've harnessed the power of electrons to be able to talk to each other. So what drives technology? Why do we do it? Well, some people are curious. War. Actually, you look at most of the technology around us, and it's been done by war. The internet came from war. Nuclear power came from war. Your passenger airliner, that used to be a cargo plane during World War II. If you look at the airplane, they were still using biplanes at the beginning of World War II, and then by the end they were on the verge of jet engines. And so you see how war really pushes technology. Space, our endeavor to go to space, has had a huge impact on what technology is. That's why, if nothing else, why we should go. And of course, greed. Just ask Thomas Edison. Anyway, the thing is, when we think about the colonization technologies, things like power, water, and air, aren't those things we could use here on Earth? Better power, cleaner water, more fresh air. The commonality of technology is we want to go faster, we want to become closer, and it's for everyone. If you really think about I always have problems pronouncing this, the democratization of the world. It's not necessarily governments, but technology. The technology more quickly brings down the barriers. And it's also locked people out of opportunity. Like before, entrepreneurship, it was just for those hardy enough or crazy enough to go do it. And now there's so much information, anyone can go into entrepreneurship. Finance was only for the select few, and now the information's everywhere. You don't need finance people, you can do it yourself. So what is the basis of all technology? All technology can fall into 4 areas: electromagnetism, which pretty much gives us all our wireless and motors; electron devices, which has made things small. But what electron devices has enabled is computing. And that's that before computers were too big and too slow to handle all the information, but because of the electron device, now all of a sudden you have compact memory and everything else. Computing is man-made, but it's changed our world. And then biologics, which has to do with pharma and food science. People make fun of GMO, but the reality is if I take one seed, plant it with another seed, and they create a new kind of plant, that's GMO also. So it's not all about, creating freaky mutants. But anyway, the thing is that we want to miniaturize it. And we don't want to make things small for the sake of making them small. We want them smaller just so they can fit us. The people who shaped our age, it's good to know a little bit about some of the people. Michael Faraday basically invented the battery. Back in those days, people were more than one discipline. He was an electrical engineer and a chemist. James Clerk Maxwell, my current personal hero, based on those 4 equations, everything in electromagnetism can be derived from Maxwell. Tesla gave us wireless. It wasn't Marconi, it was Tesla. William Shockley, Nobel Prize winner, he gave us all of semiconductor technology. He pretty much figured out how silicon was going to work, how 3, 5, and 2, 6 materials were going to work. William Shockley was a professor at Stanford, and basically he became a white supremacist and went off the deep end. Alan Turing is the father of computer science. Alan Turing was the British mind that broke the Enigma code that the Nazis used during World War II. Quite sadly, though, Alan Turing, he saved Great Britain. And what did he get for his troubles? Essentially, Alan Turing was gay. He was hounded. He was tortured. And then he was given the choice of either, go to jail for life or be chemically castrated. And so Alan Turing took his life. Very sad. A huge loss for the world. Bob Metcalfe, when they listed the top 100 scientists in the history of MIT, Bob Metcalfe was not put in the top 10, and a lot of MIT students complained. And the reason why is Bob Metcalfe, what did he do? He figured out how to move large amounts of information through packets. And those packets of information became the ARPANET, and the ARPANET became the internet. Fleming was the one who found penicillin. That created a new age of medicine, because now, before, they focused on just like making you comfortable, but now you could actually go after actual maladies. And not only that, but Fleming started our age of pills, and now our medicine is all about biologics, essentially things made from biological materials, and that's about DNA, and that's Crick and Watson. If we look at technology and how it changes, what happens is somebody comes up with a bunch of inventions, and then you have a decade of innovation where they turn those inventions into innovations, whether it's the railroad from the steam engine or hooking up the entire world. Tooling allowed us to actually manufacture things, because now we can make things repeatably. That tends to be overlooked. And then in the early 1900s, that's when we created a power network, automobile. And then what happened is people cashed in on it. At one point in this country, we had, there's been like 2,000 automobile companies and 200 actually operating at the same time. The 60s brought us the semiconductor, microsensors, and also the first cell phones. And subsequently, we had another age of innovation. And then in the early 2000s, now you're talking about high-end computing, the cloud, AI. And now today, we're in the age of innovation. Some say it'll be quantum computing will be the next big invention that'll change our world. We'll see. But here's one way to think about it. If you fell asleep in 1950 and woke up in 1980, yeah, the world would be different. I mean, it'd be crowded and everything. But actually, it's pretty much the same. You had airplanes then, you had telephones then. So the world was pretty much the same. But if you went to sleep in 1980, and in 1980 a computer took up a whole floor of a building, and then you woke up in 2010, you'd be shocked at what the world has become, and it's because of the internet and mobile devices. And people would look at you and say, you have so much power at the tip of your hands. What do you do with it? You know, there are birds and angry pigs. Anyway, but that's the thing. Innovation goes through these cycles, and so does medicine. In the 1800s, medicine was all about avoiding your pain. They didn't have solutions, so you died from it. Was there cancer in the 1800s? Yes, but did that many people die from it? No, because they died from disease or pneumonia. Those were the most common things. Then, with penicillin and everything else, we fixed those problems, and it was about heart disease and cancer. But here we had the big boom of pharma taking place in the 1900s. Not only pharma, but also being able to diagnose problems. And now in this century, it's about Alzheimer's, autoimmune diseases, and lifestyle. Yes, we're living longer, so what's the point of living longer if you can't enjoy it? I mean, I've told my wife that if I'm no longer viable as a person, don't let me hang around, just pull the plug. I believe in quality of life, not just living for the sake of living. But this is the medical age that we live in. And so the subtext is, though technology is inherently buggy, it takes time to get a technology to work right. It's really difficult to dislodge incumbents, and the reason why is they know the customer and they got a boatload of money and they have defenses set up, and this is why a lot of innovations take decades before they finally hit the market. And the thing to remember is that invention and innovation is a cycle. This is when you build businesses. And what happens in the cycle of innovation? You'll find out in the next video.